two tales compare and contrast. Once upon a time, in a quiet little town surrounded by mountains and trees, there lived a curious girl named Lila. She wasn't afraid of bugs, thunder, or even the dark. What truly scared her was boredom. She always longed for something amazing to happen. In the anime, our heroine is a teenage girl who lives with her grandparents. She loves normal things like fashion and boys, but hates having to do housework. She would much rather spend her time watching TV or hanging out with her best friends. One misty morning, while playing near the edge of the forest behind her grandmother's cottage, Lila saw something strange. A trail of blue flowers glowing faintly under the leaves. She followed the path, pushing through ferns and branches, until she reached a giant oak tree, so wide she couldn't even wrap her arms halfway around it. Our heroine is on her way home from school one day, when she gets lost in the woods. Just as she begins to panic, she spots a mysterious glow coming from behind some trees. As she approaches, she realizes it's coming from a giant magical tree. On its trunk was something incredible. A door, a wooden door with glowing carvings of animals. An owl, a fox, a bear, even a talking turtle. And just above the handle, written in tiny golden letters, were the words, "For those who still believe in wonder." Lila touched the handle, and the door creaked open slowly. A burst of warm air and glowing light wrapped around her like a hug. Without thinking twice, she stepped through. A world beyond the door. She steps inside and finds herself in a beautiful magical world. At first she's scared, but soon starts to feel comfortable. There she meets many friendly animals who invite her to explore their world. In the anime, the girl finds a pendant hidden behind the roots of the tree and puts it on. She is immediately transported to a fantasy world full of monsters and magic. Although she doesn't know how to get back, she decides to make the best of it and sets off on an adventure. Lila gasped. She had entered a magical forest where everything shimmered. The trees glowed softly. The air smelled like cinnamon and honey, and the sky above was filled with floating lanterns. Birds sang songs with words. Flowers giggled when you walked past them. And then she heard a voice. About time someone opened that door. Lila turned to see a fox with bright orange fur, wearing a green scarf and tiny round glasses. "I'm Thimble, the forest guide," he said with a bow. "And you're our first visitor in a very long time." Lila blinked. "Wait, are you talking?" "Of course I'm talking." Thimble smiled. "This is the Forest of Echoes, where every creature has a story to share, if someone's willing to listen." The girl soon comes across an old wizard who reveals that he has been waiting for her arrival. He explains that she is the legendary Moon Child who is destined to save their world. Of course, she protests that she's just an ordinary girl and doesn't belong in this magical place, but the wizard insists that she is special and must embrace her destiny. The Forest of Echoes, Thimble led Lila down winding paths to meet his friends. First, they visited Bruno the bear, who was stirring honey into tea inside a giant tree trunk house. Bruno's deep voice rumbled. "I once slept for 100 years and dreamed of stars singing lullabies. Want to hear one?" He hummed a low magical melody that made Lila's eyes water. She'd never felt so peaceful. Next, they met Mira the mouse, who painted stories onto leaves with glowing ink. "I can write down your dreams before you even have them," she squeaked. "Do you know what I'll dream tonight?" Lila asked. Mira smiled. "You'll dream of flying on the back of a cloud lion, and it will come true." Everywhere she went, Lila met kind and curious creatures. A rabbit who danced to moonlight, a shy turtle who recited poetry, a squirrel who invented tiny machines powered by laughter. In the anime, the girl continues to wander around this fantastical world, meeting all sorts of interesting characters along the way. She helps them solve problems and even gains some new friends. But all the while, she longs to return home. But then, the wind shifted. The forgotten part of the forest. Thimble frowned. There's one part of the forest we don't visit anymore. Why not? Lila asked. He hesitated. A long time ago, a young girl from your world came here. She made a promise and broke it. Since then, the shadows have been whispering. Lila's curiosity burned brighter than her fear. I want to see it. Thimble sighed, but nodded. They crossed a bridge made of spiderwebs and followed a path of silent owls. The trees grew taller and darker. Then they arrived at a stone circle, and in the middle stood a giant mirror. Lila stepped closer. The mirror shimmered, and her reflection smiled back differently. Do you want to stay here forever? The reflection whispered. Lila's heart pounded. No, I love it here. But my grandma's waiting. My world has its own kind of magic. I have to go back. The reflection vanished, and the shadows disappeared like smoke. You passed the test, Thimble whispered. Not everyone does. Returning home. Thimble walked her back to the door in the great oak. I'll miss you, Lila said. You'll return. Those who believe always find a way. She stepped through the door and found herself in the forest behind Grandma's cottage again. But something was different. In her pocket, she found a tiny scroll of glowing leaf paper. It read, Thank you for listening. Never stop imagining. And from that day on, whenever Lila looked at trees, she wondered, what if there's another door just waiting to be opened?